Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the RInnoValleys project partners and ourselves, the host organisation for today, CEAI, I'm delighted to welcome you to the second of the RInnoValleys webinars, which are part of the deliverables which we are committed to delivering under the RInnoValleys project. So the RInnoValleys project, it's a Horizon Europe project. It's a 12-month project, and we have partners across Greece, Spain, Malta, Belgium, Hungary, and Ireland, and most, if not all of them, are already represented here today. The project itself is focused on understanding and addressing the challenges that face startups when engaging with the European Innovation Council and accessing the programmes and initiatives of the Council. So the title of today's programme is Interregional Collaboration for Capacity Building and Implementation, very much focused on collaboration, engagement and partnership across Europe to drive regional innovation and collaboration. We have some fantastic speakers here this morning. At the risk of looking like we've been parochial, I've pulled on a number of experts across the Irish ecosystem, each of which will bring very different perspectives to this morning's conversation. And I think it's important maybe just to say to you that Ireland is considered a strong innovator on the European Innovation Scoreboard. In 2024, we had a performance of 113.2% of the EU average, which is against a baseline of 108 when the measurement of the innovation performance began. So there's been significant progress in Ireland, and each of the speakers that you will hear today will speak to you about the different, I suppose, components of what allows us to, as Ireland, to be positioned as a strong innovator, and very particularly how we focus on European collaboration in order to drive that engagement. So there are a couple of things I would say to you at this stage. One, this is being recorded, and the recordings will be made available on the project website over the coming days. There is a survey which I will drop into the chat, and which, if you could take some time to complete very quickly at any point during the next 2 hours, that would be really great. And the information that we gather is important in terms of feeding the work under the project and influencing the development of the action plan, which will come out of the project itself. And I guess also just to remind you that I'm conscious everybody here is giving very generously of their time and expertise. So we'll try to keep this to within the 2 hours. If there are questions, we can take them towards the end of the presentation. And of course, all of you have our contact details, either myself or many of the other partners across the project, and you can always reach out to us afterwards. So thank you very much for taking the time to be here. I'm going to hand over to Dr. Sean McCarthy, the first of our speakers this morning. For those of you who were on the call maybe slightly earlier, I met Sean first 31 years ago, I think at this point, at a conference in Brussels hosted by what used to be DG13. So things have changed an awful lot since then. But very much to the benefit of all the European regions. And Sean himself is an absolute guru when it comes to European funding. So you couldn't be in better hands for the next half hour. So thank you, everybody. Sean, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Siobhan. And hello to everybody. I see Liam and some familiar faces there. For those of you that never met me before, I met Siobhan 31 years ago, but I've been involved in the European Research Programme since 1980, September 1980. So that's 43 years. So no wonder I know a lot about it. It's what I do, you know. And just to give you an idea, the presentation I'm giving you is the presentation we give all over Europe. And if you look at the top 100 universities in Europe by ranking, we give courses in 78 of those. So what I'm presenting is the kind of stuff that the top people want. So I hope I've adapted the course for EIC, but it just gives you an idea of how these people think. So that's one of the things I'd like to put across is the way of thinking about these particular programs. So I just put up my slide, and I've actually given Siobhan a handout, a PDF. So sit back and relax. All the slides that you see are on the PDF. So, and the links are also active when I do mention the link. So the first thing I want to look at is where EIC fits into the Horizon Europe landscape. When you look at Horizon Europe, you see about 20 different programs, but there's no indication of how they're related. So that's the first thing we're going to do. And then I'm going to focus on the theme of your workshop, is how can companies in your regions benefit from EIC and from Horizon Europe as a whole. Now, EIC is part of a network of programs, and there's also links to other programs. So I'll just finish off with looking beyond EIC and beyond Horizon Europe. So I hope you'll find the whole thing useful. So now at the end, I'll have time for questions, but I'm staying on for the morning. So if there's any other questions later on, you're welcome to do this. So let's look at Horizon Europe. And I know a lot of you have to explain Horizon Europe to people, but this is the way we do it. You have to go back to what Europe is doing. You have 27 countries coming together, identifying areas where they cooperate. And that debate is now on for the next framework program. But the 27 countries agreed to cooperate in a whole range of areas. And when they cooperate, they set up a program to implement that cooperation. So Malta has its own research program, Ireland, Finland, and so on. But we agreed to work on research and innovation through Horizon Europe. But when the politicians put funding into a program, they want to know what's coming back. And that's a big, big issue. And it's getting bigger as the programs go ahead. So you have programs like InvestEU, Erasmus, Digital Europe, Creative Europe. But there's now something new happening in Brussels. They want links with national programs through things like Eureka, Eurostars, and so on. So the first thing you must understand is that EIC is part of Horizon Europe, and Horizon Europe is part of a big ecosystem of about 30 different programs. Now, the big word in Brussels today is something called synergies. Now, I see your regions as an area where this is strong. You work with Interreg, you work with InvestEU, Digital Europe. So the organizations that can bring all the programs together, say, to produce innovative companies or world-class companies, not just EIC within Horizon Europe. So that word synergies, I'm going to show you, that's going to be the theme of what I'm doing. And it's already happening in your regions, but you treat them as individual programs like Interreg and Horizon Europe. So that's one of the things I would put into your head to be conscious of, and you'll see it coming up in the presentation. Now, you're all familiar with Horizon Europe. Your Pillar 1 about making Europe a leader in science. Pillar 2 about addressing things like climate change, energy, but also look at the second line, establishing Europe as an industrial leader. And it's divided into 6 clusters. They're divided into topics. Now, there's something new in Horizon Europe, which is going to be big in the next program. It's called missions, which I won't go into today. Now, this is where you're located. Now, Pillar 3 is about Europe becoming a net exporter of technology. So if you look at your desk today, I'm a computer nerd. I have an electronics background. I have 10 different technologies on my table today. Not one single piece of technology comes from Europe. So Pillar 3 is about, can Europe become a net exporter of technologies? And this is where EIC is located. And of course, then we have the program dealing with widening participation. So you can see there that EIC is just a part of the overall package. Now, there's one thing when you're talking to companies about Horizon Europe, you must distinguish between what we call bottom-up programs, which EIC is, where the companies are totally free to submit any idea they want, as long as they would make Europe a leader in that particular area. Pillar 2 is different, is where you're asked to address specific challenges like reducing getting plastics out of the water, or developing treatments for cancer or whatever. So again, here, this kind of language is important to understand. Now, if you go onto the Commission's website, this is what you see, just a big long list of programs. That is not the way to think about it. So what I want to show you is how we explain Horizon Europe to organizations like universities, research centers, and companies. And we use this famous table called TRL. It was invented by NASA, the American Space Agency, back in 1977. And they called TRL 1 fundamental research, blue skies research. And 9 is ready to implement. In fact, in NASA, they used to call TRL 9 ready for liftoff. It's going on the next rocket because we fully understand the technology. TRL, so take, for example, the computer mouse. The laboratory research is TRL 2 and 3. Now, TRL 4 is not very pretty. There's the first computer mouse. Made of timber, it's cracked, there's a little button on it, and all it did was move a dot across the screen. So what universities do is they prove that concepts work. And then the focus is on, can we make it faster, cheaper, lighter, profitable, and so on. So if we use that kind of table, we can see that universities typically work TRL 1 to 5. Universities of applied science, in Ireland they would be called technological universities, are normally from about 2 up to 7. So you can see they're getting closer to the application, and there's a role there for these type of universities. Research centres like the Fraunhofer in Germany, Tyndall in Cork, VTT in Finland, and so on, they go from about TRL 3 up to TRL 7. But where do companies fit? Now, a number of years ago, there was a famous British study done called the Nesta report, and it has been copied many times, but they found something amazing. They found that 3% of companies are called research-intensive companies. Now, what they mean by that is that these companies can take ideas from the laboratory right through this whole development process. And another 3% of companies, they don't develop the technologies, but once the technologies are available, they start using them. Now, there was a report published called The Vital 6%. And that report showed that 50% of all new jobs come from these 6% of companies. And this is where the deep tech companies are. And then they found that 94% of companies were either low tech or no tech. Now, these companies, low tech and no tech, are very profitable. They're just not developers of technology. So when you look at your region, that 6%, that is the limit of the number of companies that EIC is relevant to. So if we use that as the base of our graph, our table, where does Horizon Europe fit? So companies want to know, where can we get funding on our own, or where do we have to be part of a consortium? Now, it's clear here that universities love Pillar 1. Companies rarely look at Pillar 1. You have ERC, you have something called the proof of concept, which I'll refer to. You have Marie Curie, there are opportunities in there for companies also, and you have access to research infrastructure. So when I'm talking to high-tech companies, I'd say, yeah, there could be some bit in Marie Curie, have a look at proof of concept and so on. Pillar 2 goes from TRL 3 up to TRL 7. Now look where we're entering into the area of the research-intensive companies. Now in Pillar 2, there's 2 types of grants. There's a grant called the Research and Innovation Action, which is more suitable to universities and research centers, also to really research-intensive companies that are advanced, and they could participate in research and innovation actions. But have a look at the next one. It's called an innovation action. This is where you demonstrate, do trials, prototypes. Now we're entering into something that's relevant to the research intensive and even to the high technology companies. Now we come to pillar 3. And this is where we first see EIC Accelerator. And that's the famous one for funding companies to be the next big thing. Now, when I'm explaining EIC Accelerator to companies, what I say to them, this is for funding companies that could potentially be the world leader in 2030. You know, in the kind of short 5, 6 year terms. Innovation Ecosystems funds things like Liam's RDI group, a lot of the entrepreneurial group. It funds accelerators and bringing net incubators and accelerators together around Europe. And EIT is for developing the entrepreneurial skills of researchers. Now, the biggest surprise of all is EIC Pathfinder. Look where it's located. Way down TRL 1 to 4. Now, when I'm explaining Pathfinder, what I say to companies is that this is for developing technologies that will make Europe a leader in 2035 and even 2040. It's for these radical, crazy ideas that could be the next big thing, the next type of battery, the next type of systems, sensors, or whatever. So it's not for immediate, close to market research. And then EIC transition is for taking these raw early stage prototypes and trying to develop a business plan. So when you look at EIC, you see these 3 things, but they're 3 totally different programs, and people get mixed up in them. Now, out here then, you have other programs like Digital Europe, InvestEU, structural funds, and so on. Now, you might find this amazing. This diagram does not exist in Brussels. It took us 3 months to design this diagram. And so when we're talking about Horizon Europe, this is the kind of mind map that we have. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see how do you approach these different programs. So let's see what are the opportunities for companies. I'll focus on EIC, but you'll see that EIC is linked to other parts of Horizon Europe. Now, we work with all the top universities and research. We work with Philips, people who just seem to click their fingers and win projects. They don't. They have a formula. So if I'm looking at a company or a university or a technological university, what I say to them is what you're doing really top-class science. Now, what I notice about these groups, they are brilliant at identifying ideas. In fact, they spend their whole time looking for the next great idea. And they are brilliant at networking. So that's the theme of today's workshop, the whole role of partnerships. Now, networking is great, but you need to know who to network with, depending on which program are you going. Now, the other skill that they have is that when they have a brilliant idea and a brilliant network, they have the skills to convert their idea into a competitive proposal. And the other skill they have is they know how to deal with the rules. Now, there's the formula for the winning teams. And your project is about this part here, about building partnerships, but it should be done in the context of this diagram here. And what we do, we specialize in this. We don't deal with rules and we don't deal with science. We deal with this whole area. So I just want to share with you how we advise people to approach this in a strategic way. Now, I'm going to start with EIC Pathfinder. And I'm going to look at 2 things. I'm first going to look at, if you're dealing with a company, say a real research-intensive company, and they're looking at Pathfinder, the kind of partners they need to work with are universities at the cutting edge of technology, universities of applied science, research centers that are at this level, and the research-intensive companies. So you can see the kind of consortium here is driven, I often see driven by research centers, people who have developed a concept and they want to see is their commercial potential. But it's not for products on the market in the next 1 or 2 years. It's kind of these long-term breakthroughs, mainly getting the patents, and can you license the patents? So for some companies, EIC Pathfinder is kind of looking over the horizon, and that's how we would explain Pathfinder. But the interesting question is, where do you get ideas for Pathfinder? Now, before I forget it, EIC Pathfinder is modeled on the MIT innovation system. In MIT in America, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, they have this program where they fund these radical, crazy ideas. And they expect 90% of the ideas they fund to fail. So as to give people a chance to try out something that is radical. I love reading the projects that have been funded in Pathfinder. You know, they don't seem to make sense, but one of those could be the next big thing. But where do the ideas come from? Where can you get ideas for Pathfinder projects? Now, the most obvious one, which nobody looks at, is ERC proof of concept. ERC proof of concept is somebody who's doing fundamental research, gets €150,000 to test the viability of some technology coming out of their area. Now, all of you should be analyzing the proof of concept projects. Now, there are 15,000 ERC projects, but only 2,000 of them have a proof of concept. So there must be huge amounts of opportunities within ERC projects. And a lot of ERC people try to move into Pathfinder. So again, analyzing these projects, they're all up on the website that you can see. Now, there is another source. It's research and innovation projects that have a very low TRL element to them. So when I'm looking for ideas and partners, these are the kind of projects I'm involved would monitor, because over 60% of projects come from previous projects. So can you see that the way that you approach Pathfinder is a very, very unique way? And of course, then Pathfinder is also from companies with these radical ideas that they're not willing to put money into, but say, look, if we got 2 or 3 million, to be worth checking this out. It's not going to cost us any money, but if it works, it could open up something. So that's a kind of way. So now let's move on now to EIC transition. EIC transition is to take ideas at the very low TRL, say 3, 4, to see, can we build a business case for them? Now, where do ideas come from? Obviously, research-intensive companies. Now we're getting into the kind of business planning. A lot of these could be driven by the companies. Also, research centers see it as a way of further developing the technology. Here then, so these are the kind of partners. If I was doing a transition, these are the kind of partners that we would be looking for. But the ideas come from Pathfinder. So if you were saying, I do a Pathfinder, then I do an EIC transition. Also, ERC proof of concept. Suppose we prove that the concept has feasibility. Now let's move to transition. Another one is innovation actions, proves that the concept works. Now let's do a business plan. And of course, then a company can come from completely outside the framework Horizon Europe program with an idea. So EIC transition in the whole of Horizon Europe is the one I've least experience with, but it's most about business planning like this. But what about the next one? Accelerator. This is the creme de la creme for small companies. You can get this at 2.5 million to scale up your technology. Now, EIC Accelerator is modeled on the American DARPA program. And in the competitiveness report, which was launched on Tuesday of this week, they recommended that this has to be expanded in Framework 10 to be more DARPA-like. So how can the Americans disrupt technologies? They launch something and suddenly it's a world leader that nobody thought about before. So they're trying to model it on the American way of thinking. Now, this is where this is driven by the companies. It's a single partner, and it's an absolutely beautiful program. But where do the, and also now, here's now where the high technology companies can come in. you know, where they have a technology that they'd like to use. It's fully developed, but they need to scale up the technology and so on. But the ideas for accelerator, again, you have the natural transition from EIC transition into accelerator. You have proof of concept. They submit proposals there. Pathfinder sometimes becomes an accelerator. Innovation actions, and of course, EIT. So can you see that when we're advising companies, the first place is start analyzing projects already funded, but you have to be specific in what you're looking for. You know, it's an innovation action in pillar 2, or it's an EIC pathfinder. And this is the kind of advice that you'd be giving to companies. And of course, the research-intensive companies, the ideas can come just purely from them, or even the high technology companies. And I see this is the big one for your particular project. But you can see the difference between the 3 different programs. Now, I showed you earlier that with the transition from True Horizon Europe and down here, then you have all these other programs out here, structural funds, innovation funds. So I just like to briefly introduce them to you. Now, I could do a whole morning going through all of those. So I just picked a few perfect ones. And this is what the Commission means by they want synergies. Can you see all the synergies I've shown you within Horizon Europe? And now I'm showing you the synergies outside. So I would recommend, Siobhan, when you're talking about EIC, that this whole concept of that EIC is like a synergy that's running right through Horizon Europe, taking things from pillar 2, from pillar 1, and especially linking with ERC proof of concept. Nobody has thought of that, mentioned it before. So I think it'd be good for you to say this is one of the recommendations you make for that kind of thing. So let's have a look at some of the programs that EIC Accelerator can move on. Now, where do we find these programs? If you click on the link in your PDF at the top there, it will take you to this page here, and you can see the Innovation Fund, Digital Europe, Creative Europe is over here. Now, this is a must. Now, can I just explain what this project is about in one sentence? When a technology is developed, it is not attractive to a venture capital company. A venture capital company wants people to be using it, and the market, the early adopters are using it. But there's this space between the technology proving that it works and that before venture capital comes in. That's where InvestEU is there. InvestEU invest in the project, and then when the venture capital people put money into the project later on, or the product, InvestEU takes their money out. So it's to bridge that little gap, that fascinating program, perfect link between EIC Accelerator. It's the natural progression. If your project then is digital related and you prove that there's potential for huge demand in this at European and international level, then your digital projects would go into Digital Europe. This is up at market beyond TRL9, as we said. I put in a little bit for the creative people. I saw some names there. I think I wrote one person else, Sarah Daly, Creative Spark in Dundalk. This is for you. Creative Europe program, and this is a huge market for technologies and for services and so on. But if you go to museums and things today with QR codes and so many, there's so many applications here. Creative Europe is an ideal way of taking stuff from EIC into the creative world. And of course, the big market is tourism here and filmmaking. And sometimes you'd see these television programs, and at the very end, you see funded by Creative Europe. And sometimes it's the technology for making the movie or whatever. So this is a wonderful program. And of course, then if you are developing technologies in the kind of environmental or energy area, the LIFE program is for demonstrating technologies that have been developed, say, within Horizon Europe. And this is really very practical areas. And you know, if you're trying to convince a local authority, say, to take up a technology that has been developed, they don't like risk. So with the LIFE program, they can fund the project. And we did it long ago, funding a project looking at energy efficiency in pump houses, I remember. And the minute they saw the advantages, that's okay, let's invest in this. So it's to take the risk out of doing something new. A wonderful program. Now here's one that very few people know about. They hear of it, but it's a very unique program. And I want you to read that sentence there. I'll use Ireland as an example. If Ireland doesn't meet its environmental rules, we don't clean our water or air, I think we pay a fine of about 300 million per year to the Commission as a penalty for not doing what the regulation says. And that money doesn't go into a black hole. It goes into something called Innovation Fund. And that money is used to fund the development of innovative low carbon technologies. It's up to TRL9. You can actually get funding to develop products relating to the environment, and then companies apply for it. It's a 10 billion euro budget, and you can actually go up to product development level. Now, there's many, many more. Maybe for another day, we can look at those. So I'd like to finish here, and there's actually examples of innovation fund projects you can look at. And you can see a lot of them are really, really practical, and small companies can get funding there, to implement these real life projects. So I think that's a beautiful one. Now, I'd like to finish here. And what advice would you give to organizations interested in EIC or in Horizon Europe? The first thing, and you could see me shouting it today, analyze funded projects. It's so obvious, because a lot of projects come from previous projects, or ideas come from previous projects. Networking is about drinking coffee. It's not about LinkedIn or putting your name in a database. You have to get on your bike and go around Europe and visit the research centers, and then visiting you and so on. Because when people are looking for partners, they remember visiting a research center in Malta, or Estonia, or Finland, or Ireland, or what else. So I know it's a bit old-fashioned, meeting people and so on, but it's still the core of this business. Learning the process, evaluating proposals, which I strongly recommend, especially for companies. And of course, then there's so many free public services out there, and Ireland has an amazing one. Utilize all those. So that's the kind of general information. And I hope the presentation kind of demonstrated the first two parts, and especially the second one there, the role and the type of partnerships that are needed for the different type of EIC. So if anybody wants to follow me on LinkedIn, I'm here. So I'd like to hand back to Siobhan. I think I'm on schedule here. So if there's any question you want before I finish, I hope you enjoyed that.
Thanks so much, Sean. That was absolutely fantastic. And as Sean mentioned before he began, we do have a handout which we can circulate following this session. And we can also put it up on the project website. So if anybody has any questions, and I'm sure possibly there are people who do, we'll hold the questions until the end. Next up then we have Liam Cronin. Liam is CEO of the RDI Hub here in Ireland. And the RDI Hub is one of the partners that work with the European Innovation Council to drive the message of EIC and the EIC Accelerator into the startup community. So Liam, over to you at this stage.
Hi, Siobhan, good morning. Can you see my screen, or
Yes.
can you see the screen, Siobhan?
Yeah.
Oh, it's coming up. Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll just put it on presentation mode. So good morning, everyone, and thanks, Siobhan, for the opportunity to come in here and talk. And great presentation as always, Sean. I could listen to you all day. I mean, your knowledge and experience of European funding is amazing, and I think everyone's really fortunate to have you here this morning and hear your insights. So well done, and welcome as well to some of the other partners from Ireland. I see Noreen Conway on there from Platform 94, and Sarah Daly as well from Creative Spark. So great to have some other hubs here from Ireland. So yeah, look, RDI Hub is an EIC partner. So over the next 10-15 minutes, I'm just going to give a quick overview of RDI Hub and what we do, and how we became an EIC partner, I suppose, in terms of and then the service offering that we provide to companies on the EIC Accelerator or Pathfinder or different projects. So I suppose just a little bit of kind of geography lesson, maybe just to give you a context of who we are and where we are. So we're based here in Killorgan. It's a small town in County Kerry in Ireland. We say we're on the edge of Europe. We've been kind of innovating from the edge of Europe. It's a very small town, but it's a very unique town in terms of twice as many people work in Killorgan that live here, which is really interesting because we've got a couple of really big companies like Fexco, which has been here since 1981, and Astellas, which is another big multinational company, and Temler. In terms of the area here, I suppose our regional strengths are, fintech, certainly with Fexco, a lot of tourism tech, and then there's a lot of kind of smart manufacturing as well. So I think leveraging that kind of regional strength is important as well. But, just a very unique town. But I suppose what it shows to me is that you can be a very small town on the edge of Europe, but you can still be very innovative, and you can still collaborate across Europe with other places. And I thought it was great what Sean said there about getting out and networking and going to Brussels and going to other hubs and building those connections is really key to European success. So I suppose in terms of the RDI Hub, we're a digital, some people on the call may be familiar with the concept of European digital innovation hubs. We would classify ourselves as a digital innovation hub. We're unique in Ireland that we're a public-private partnership. So we're funded by Fexco, which is a large fintech company here in Kerry, which is now been in existence for 40 years and across 30 different countries. We also have our local university, Munster Technological University, involved in the RDI Hub, and our local authority or municipality, may be called in other places, other countries, Kerry County Council is also involved, and we get some funding from Enterprise Ireland. And I suppose what's been really good for us in terms of this public-private partnership is, I think Sean may have mentioned it there, or maybe mentioned earlier, like a lot of time when you go in for European funding, kind of showing a triple helix or even quadruple helix, where you're bringing an industry player, a university, your local government into a funding proposal is very strong. And we always can get these three partners to sign up for us. I suppose in terms of our mission here in the RDI Hub, it's all about supporting startups, scale-ups, SMEs and corporates to scale and grow, creating new products and services to lead to technology jobs in the southwest of Ireland. So that's our North Star. That's what kind of drives us every day. We've adopted a kind of a five-spoke approach that we put in our original funding application. A lot of this would be seen across other digital innovation hubs. So we do a lot of work on talent development, different programs that we run, whether it's programs for startups. We do weekly lunch and learns with our members. We do kind of monthly meetings. We have a yearly meeting like the summer school, which is happening here today. I'll talk about that at the end. And we're doing a lot of work on AI upskilling at the moment with SMEs and startups. Our second pillar is about helping companies and individuals to scale and grow, and we do that through our events and through our mentoring. We have a panel of about 30 mentors that just want to give back to the companies in the hub. We have research and innovation collaboration, as I said, with Munster Technological University, where we connect industry partners with academics to do fully funded, semi-funded projects and apply for European funding. The building itself is a 20,000 square foot building here, 150 desks, a 50-seater event space, and a podcasting studio. So, and then I suppose the other thing we try and do, as I said earlier on, is leverage our regional strengths of fintech, tourism tech, smart manufacturing, sustainability, and we're close to the ocean as well. So we use that to get involved in projects, maybe like aquatech projects in Europe. So I suppose, looking at your strengths and seeing how you can connect with other hubs across Europe to build that out is important. I suppose we've been open for almost 5 years now in January. It seems it's flown by. I suppose 2 of those years were during the pandemic, so it was a bit challenging. But we've had over 70 member companies come through the hub. We've created over 350 technology jobs, generated 55 new products. We've had major R&D investments up to nearly 10 million. Our companies have raised over 250 million. And a big focus for us is training programs and people visiting the hub. We've also been involved in the European Commission Startup Villages Forum, which has been really good for us in terms of opening doors to similar startup villages right across Europe in, Portugal, Spain, France, Ukraine, places like that, and just collaborating and figuring out our commonalities, and then being in a position to go after European funding. So, again, as Sean said earlier on, like leverage the opportunity to get out and network and build those relationships. So I suppose that's just a little bit of background, just so you get a sense of what we're about. We've been an EIC partner for the last 2 years, and I suppose we applied for the program and got selected. And in our application, we called out kind of 5 service offerings, or we put up a services catalog in terms of what we could offer. Our main focus was coaching and mentoring. So being in a position to do some coaching and mentoring, or with the EIC beneficiaries, if that was something they were interested in. We also offered out areas like AI masterclasses. We run a 2-hour AI masterclass the last Tuesday of each month. So again, we encourage some of the EIC beneficiaries to attend those. We also do one-to-one and team strategy sessions. We can do those online, and we can do them in person. And again, we offer that out to the EIC beneficiaries. We run a monthly AI training, primarily on Microsoft technologies, but Microsoft 365 Copilot. But we also do training on things like the EU AI Act and standardization and stuff like that. And then we offer other supports to startups around things like founder weekends, pre-accelerators. So they were the main kind of service offerings we put out there. I guess the one that's kind of being picked up has been the coaching and mentoring. So that's the one we've kind of really focused on now over the last year, is offering that out to EIC beneficiaries as part of that EIC badge we have. So we have an entrepreneur in residence here in the RDI Hub. You can see him there in the photograph with the green board with his hands out. That guy is Hugh Reynolds. So Hugh would have had 3 exits, 3 very successful exits from companies like Havoc, Swerve, and he's also worked for Apple and Uber in the US, in San Fran, in Silicon Valley. So he literally bases himself here each Thursday. He supports the members here in the RDI Hub, but he also does coaching sessions online to companies, EIC beneficiaries. So that's been really good. And then we have 2 people in our team, Niall Larkin and Maeve Lyons, who've done a lot of work on supporting startups with fundraising, with figuring out their product market fit, customer discovery, those kind of areas. So I suppose what we've kind of offered out to the EIC beneficiaries is, number one, kind of domain experience on, as I said, we have, VCs, venture capitalists in residence here in the hub. We have an entrepreneur in residence, that being Hugh Reynolds. We have a chief technology officer in residence from Fexco. We have a chief marketing officer, and then we have some domain experts in artificial intelligence. So that's our kind of domain expertise that we can offer out. And then we offer different services depending on what the EIC beneficiaries need, like whether it's, fundraising, attracting and retaining talent, how to motivate staff. We do a lot of work on selling to multinationals, and even, how to generate sales. We do a lot of work on product roadmaps, product development. I'm doing a lot of work on AI now in terms of AI strategies and how companies can bring that in. And then it's all about finance. But really, whatever challenges, because a lot of the companies that are EIC beneficiaries are, they're startups, or they're certainly maybe moving into scale up or whatever like that. So these are the kind of services that we felt they needed from talking to these EIC beneficiaries in Ireland. And then, as I said, we're pretty much sector agnostic, but we do have, particular skills in the area of fintech, tourism tech, sustainability, smart manufacturing, and agri-tech. These are the skill sets we have in the local area. So that's really it about us. As I said, we've been an EIC partner for the last couple of years. We've attended quite a few EIC partner events in Brussels. I was at one earlier in the year in March. And again, it's just great to meet the other EIC partners and understand, what they're offering and how we can kind of collaborate together. We haven't, I suppose my only kind of concern has been we haven't generated as many opportunities to engage with EIC beneficiaries as I would have liked. I would have thought there would have been more of those kind of opportunities happening. So again, that's something we need to continue to push, and I need to continue to get out to Europe to events and EIC events to make those collaborations kind of happen and stuff like that. So that's it. I suppose, look, never lose an opportunity to sell. I just wanted to call out, you know, we see ourselves as an AI Centre of Excellence here in the RDI Hub. We're called after John McCarthy, the famous Stanford professor that introduced a kind of phrase artificial intelligence into the Lisp programming language. And each year we run an AI summer school, usually the first week in September, to coincide with John McCarthy's birthday. This week we're running it actually second week in September, today and tomorrow. And the whole thematic over the next 2 days is around AI for sport. So how is artificial intelligence changing the sports agenda? So today is all about, we have about 12 speakers from 12 noon onwards here talking about AI for the athlete. So how artificial intelligence can improve the athlete experience in terms of injury prevention or performance analysis. And then tomorrow is around AI for the fan or the spectator. So how can you use AI to get better content, or more personalized content in areas like that? So if anyone's interested, just take a look at our website, RDI Hub. There's a link up there to it. So yeah, look, thanks again, Siobhan, for the opportunity to talk this morning. And that's just a picture of the RDI Hub here in Killorgan. And if anybody's ever in the region, give us a shout. I'm happy to take questions if there's any questions, but I know you're under pressure for time as well. So hopefully that was helpful, Siobhan.
Thanks so much, Liam. Actually, Liam is leaving the call very shortly. So maybe if anybody does have specific questions for Liam, now is probably a good time to put up your hand. Any questions? Anybody? Liam, I have one question. Just towards the end, you mentioned that the engagement with other EI centres or EI supported companies hadn't been, I suppose, as high as you would like to have seen it to be. Do you have any thoughts on why that might be, or what needs to change to help that?
Yeah, we went to an event in Brussels back in March, where from all the other countries were there that were EIC partners, and there was a lot of discussion at the time about, you know, we need to promote more the services that hubs like ourselves are providing, and there was going to be but like not much has really happened from there. So I think the action I want to work with is we're going to, I think in Ireland, Enterprise Ireland are very involved, as you know, in EIC. So I'm talking to some people in Enterprise Ireland about, you know, maybe doing something similar to this, doing a Zoom call or a Teams call with the EIC beneficiaries from Ireland to just share out, literally go through the presentation I've just gone through and see if there's an interest to collaborate. So yeah, so not really sure why. I mean, we've been sharing what we've been doing. We've been at all the events, but just the connections haven't happened. So I think we'll just maybe connect more with the EIC beneficiaries from Ireland and see can we help and support them? Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, Liam. And that's something we might come back to you about, because in fact, as part of the project action plan, and as you know, because you attended one of the partner meetings, a key part of the action plan is understanding where the challenges lie and what we as a group of regions can do to affect positive change, I guess, into the future when it comes to engaging with EIC. Martin, you've got your hand up, I see.
Thanks. Yeah, I was just wondering a little bit, you know, as in a region at the edge of Europe, I mean, it goes a bit along the lines, how do you collaborate with other regions to kind of maximize these maybe niche areas where you might be excellent or, you know, have a specialization? And if so, maybe you can mention something about any funding opportunities that, you know, might support this type of collaboration.
Yes, no, it's a great question, Martin. So I guess what we've been doing over the last, you know, I suppose 4 years really, like definitely 3 to 4 years is I've been kind of challenging myself to get on a plane and just get into Europe at least once a month. So you know, we've been going to Brussels. I think I said it there in the presentation. The Startup Villages Forum that we got selected for was a great stepping stone, you know, because that got us connected with 10 similar startup villages across Europe, and we actually ended up getting a funding project from Horizon Europe coming through on that. They're recently a food co-op project around circular economy. I suppose the other thing I've been doing quite a bit is connecting in with other EDIHs, European Digital Innovation Hubs. And, you know, you start with maybe a monthly call just to get to know each other a bit more. And then I've been going visiting those hubs and, you know, spending a day, maybe a couple of days there, and likewise they coming over here. We were successful last year with an Interreg Northwest Europe project called Digital Innovation for the Blue Economy and Social Tourism. And we kind of bit the bullet on that one and led the project. So, and we brought in 16 partners across Ireland, France, Spain, and Portugal. So the fact that we are kind of leading it and did all the kind of hard work to get that application in, and thankfully it got funded. I kind of feel that the other 15 partners now owe us a favour back to bring us into their consortiums, and that has been happening. There's another project we're working on at the moment for Interreg Northwest Europe for the end of January, with a hub in the Netherlands, that came about through this project. So I think to me, it's about just, you know, I think Sean mentioned earlier, and I couldn't agree more with him. It's really about networking, you know, getting out to Europe, getting out to different hubs, you know, going to, you know, connecting in maybe with your different assemblies in the different countries. We do a lot of work with here in Ireland. I'm not sure how it is in other countries, but, you know, the Southern Regional Assembly, and, you know, they run, you know, regular every quarter Interreg meetings. I think there's one coming up next week. I think the Interreg Northwest Europe national event is actually happening here in Ireland in Crow Park on the 6th and 7th of November. So obviously we'll be at that. But it's networking, it really is. You can't do it from behind the screen, or you can't do it from, I can't certainly do it here from Killorgan on the edge of Europe. You just need to get on a plane and get out there and meet the hubs. And I think what's great for me, and has been great, is when you go and meet the other digital innovation hubs, you realize how similar you are to them, you know, and like certainly wouldn't have an inferiority complex talking to any of the hubs, because I think we can bring a lot of value. And I suppose what we try and leverage a little bit now as well is, you know, since UK removed themselves from Europe, we're the only English speaking kind of, well, English being our first language speaking country in Europe. So that helps, like when you're looking to build consortiums, because we're able to position ourselves that we can help with project communication, dissemination, because English is our first language, really, I suppose, here in Ireland. So so it's leveraging, I suppose, your strengths as well, and seeing how you can bring those to the table, and then, you know, just building relationships with other hubs that you have synergies with. You know, if you're focused on fintech, you know, you can go on to, there's a really good website there that has all the European Digital Innovation Hubs on it. I can share it with Siobhan afterwards if you want to send it out as a follow on. But, you know, you can go on there and do search and say, you know, where are the sustainability hubs, where are the European Digital Innovation Hubs that are focusing on sustainability, and it'll give you back a list of 10 hubs that you can go and connect with and go visit. So I'm sorry, Martin, that's probably a long-winded answer of saying it's all about networking.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liam. Does anybody else have questions? Okay, super. What we're going to do is just pause the meeting here for, say, 10 minutes, just to give everybody some time to grab a coffee, maybe check your emails, and we will meet back here at 10 minutes past 10. And just a reminder again to everybody that is on the call, and I will drop in the link again, the details on the Menti survey that we're running. If you could just take some time, maybe over this 10-minute break with a coffee, or at the other end of this morning's webinar, just to respond to the questions at the link. So thanks so much, folks, and see you in 10 minutes. Great. Okay, super. Let's get started. So again, thanks to everybody for taking the time to join us here this morning. And also just a reminder that there is a link to the survey in the group chat, if you can take some time to complete that survey at some point over the next hour or so. Also, I dropped in the link to the European Digital Innovation Hub homepage that Liam mentioned earlier in the conversation this morning for anybody that's interested. So next up we have Gary O'Mara. Gary is CEO of Meath Enterprise. He's also the founder of the BioEnz Food Innovation District. And Gary's going to speak to you this morning about innovation from I suppose, very much a grassroots and regional perspective here in Ireland, and what it means to be part of the wider European innovation ecosystem also. So I'm going to manage Gary's slides, and if you just give me a moment, I'm going to just make sure that you can all see them before Gary gets started. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
Great, brilliant. So Gary, you just let me know when you want me to move on to the next slide.
Yeah, that's super, Siobhan, and good to see everybody this morning. And thanks for the invite, Siobhan, to speak to what it is we're doing here in the BioEnz. So I think I've probably met some of you already, but yeah, just to give you some insights and a bit of an idea what it is we're trying to do with the BioEnz Food Innovation District. So firstly, Meath Enterprise is a local kind of government aligned enterprise development company. So we have a couple of enterprise centers. If you go back to the first slide there, so you'll see in the top left there the image. That's our main facility in Navan. It's 87,000 square foot facility. About 40,000 square foot of that is currently allocated to food innovation, production, and manufacturing projects. To the right of that, you'll see our food R&D lab, and we've a sensory testing facility within that space as well that we use to support mainly currently our tenants or our own clients, but for companies and startups and entrepreneurs who know how to use the facilities and are quite familiar, it is available obviously for companies outside that we wouldn't necessarily be dealing with directly. We've also, you see a laser printer there just below. So we've a fab lab and a makerspace. It's not something that we're necessarily experts in, but we do have within that fab lab kind of 3D printing services and facilities and equipment, laser cutting equipment, large format printing equipment, and various other pieces of tech that we can use ourselves to support all our clients and tenants in terms of product development and packaging and various things. But we also then use it for training, and we bring in partners to facilitate training for companies, whether they be our own clients or tenants or those from outside. You'll see then some green screen there. So we have a media lab, production facility with lots of high-tech equipment in terms of media production. And we've drones and we've various other tech within that space that we can kind of use outside, and we can take a lot of that stuff offsite as well, and we can do stuff offsite in different locations, not just in the production space itself. So, you know, in terms of Meath Enterprise, that's our main facility. We have another facility in Kells, but that's our main space, and we are currently focused on helping companies and supporting SMEs and startups in all sectors. But one of our projects, one of our key projects, our biggest projects, is the BioEnz Food Innovation District. So basically, really what that's all about is providing, I suppose, food hub space. So we've recently built some food incubation units with the support of Enterprise Ireland and Meath County Council, local government, to support startups and smaller SMEs to maybe kind of scale their operations. We're also working with larger companies, larger SMEs, you know, moving towards kind of working or collaborating with corporates to try and help them find, I suppose, help them with their innovation capacities in terms of matching them with startups and other companies that we're aware of, or projects that we're aware of that may be of interest or they may be able to align to. So, so fostering the development of innovation ecosystems in rural and agricultural regions. I suppose, why are we doing an innovation district? Well, the BioEnz, for those who wouldn't know, would have a rich history in food innovation. I remember a project from Devonish Nutrition, who were located in the region, a global kind of animal feed nutrition company. They did some work and imagery with GCD, and similarly imagery from satellite of ruins and various things across the Boyne Valley region, which is relatively untouched for the past 10,000 years, showed that kind of food innovation and farming and everything else kind of started in that region more than 10,000 years ago, because the landscapes and everything else are very much untouched. So it is quite fitting. There's a rich history and deep history of food innovation across the region, but we have big companies like Alltech and Devonish and Kerry Foods and Boyne Valley Foods and everything else operating across the region as well. So lots of multinational and corporate entities to be kind of tapping into, and lots of scope to develop a pipeline of new innovative startups and scale-ups, and that's where our focus is, and that's what the Boyne Valley Food Innovation District really is trying to focus on as one of our key projects. You can go to the next one there, Siobhan, sorry. So again, like I said, not just in Navan, obviously we have a tech hub in Kells as well, and it's about 25,000 square foot. So we various companies down there working in AI, working in software development, working in kind of clean tech and various other sectors. And we've a lot of space in Kells as well for supporting those companies, but also companies from across the Food Innovation District. So we have a 128-seater auditorium in Kells that we use for events and conferences or accelerators, hackathons, training, and various other programs that we'd be running across the county or the region. So Kells is a fantastic facility. The next one down there, that photo underneath. So we're starting to do an awful lot of work with universities. So we've got all these companies, we've got access to companies that aren't necessarily tenants within our hubs, or aren't necessarily using our facilities or don't need the facilities yet. So we are working with companies outside and trying to basically support them getting access to international or global market opportunities. So like Liam and even Sean alluded to earlier, I suppose, you know, burning rubber and getting out there and meeting other hubs, innovation ecosystems or potential partners across the globe has been a priority for us over the past 12 or 15 months. So we've been on most of the continents, from Australia to Africa to the US between last year and this year, and trying to build relationships, Canada as well, with the, you know, Canada Food Innovation District and AgriNovus in Indianapolis, and we've been, you know, we're possibly going to be in California before the end of the year with a major kind of food innovation valley ecosystem project that are looking to align with us and some of the stuff that we're doing or talking about or looking to try and get involved in. So there's some very exciting opportunities out there, but really, I suppose the big thing for us is getting out there and trying to meet these other projects or like-minded individuals or kind of ecosystems and seeing what we can do to support and share what we're learning here, but also learn from them themselves. For us, in terms of smart specialization, I suppose we're focusing on foods, agriculture, functional foods, alternative proteins, and that kind of thing. We were looking, you can actually move on to the next one there, Siobhan. We were looking at, sorry, go back one, let me see. Yeah, sorry, go to the next one, Siobhan, sorry. We were looking at developing a new space, which we'll come to in a second, and it was we have planning permission for it. It's a new digital innovation smart agri hub project that is kind of a phase 2 to our food hub and our incubators that we created last year and this year. But we've kind of moved away a little bit from the idea of focusing on the smart agri hub, which was going to be AI and machine learning and robotics. Not that we won't be looking at that, because some of our clients in Kells are working in those spaces, and here in Navan also in our existing centres. But because of some of the projects that have come on our radar over the past 12 or 15 months, such as vertical farming and hydroponics and aeroponics and other types of opportunities, even in kind of green tech and energy, that can support kind of, you know, whether it be farming, animal nutrition, or products that eventually end up on the shelves, food related in terms of packaging technologies and various other things, innovations. We're looking at a lot of that kind of stuff, and we found a number of projects in our travels that are looking to base themselves potentially in Ireland. 1 or 2 are getting off the ground currently. Agritopia would be one of those, based here in Screen in Meath. And it's a vertical farming project, hydroponics. You'll see a group of people standing there on those bottom slides. That's a pilot program that we've helped launch. So they're not using directly our facilities, but we've helped create and develop a new facility based on a very large farm. So basically converting farm sheds into high-tech warehousing space, because we're short on space, obviously, in the region currently. So I'm bringing in funding from the Middle East and America, technology from the States, and science from Germany, and bringing it all together, basically finding it on our travels, like I said, and bringing it all together and helping or facilitating the creation of a new high potential startup that is up and running, and about $1.5 million has been invested so far in that project. And that's taken barley and grain, basically in a vertical farming system indoors, kind of water treatment systems where 95% of the water is kind of reused and recycled, and taking that grain or barley and turning it into a wheat sprout. So you would have seen on one of the previous slides, but you'll see it in the background there. So it's an 8-layer system, for example, that can basically turn out 1.5 ton of wheat sprout that can be used for animal feed, for dairy or beef cattle, for equine, for pigs, chicken, the whole lot. So we're working with Teagasc, which is our national kind of food research agency here in Ireland. We're working with UCD Lions Farm and a couple of other universities. We're working with a lot of labs and kind of nutritionists and everything else, as well as private companies like Keepack and ABP and some of the large kind of cattle producers, to try and see how this technology, first and foremost, and the produce coming from that can kind of help our sector. Some of the research done in the Middle East and the US, which we're verifying in the pilot that we're running here in Meath, has shown that animals eating this particular product, this wheatgrass, which is basically blended into their daily ration, and forms about 40% of their overall dry feed. Animals eating this ration, the methane emissions from the animal are reduced from anywhere between 25 and 40%. So in terms of climate and environmental kind of actions and responsibilities and targets that we have to hit, all those penalties that Sean mentioned earlier, this lends itself not just to the health and well-being of the animal, the potential for the manufacturing of equipment and everything else that can be scaled into Europe, Africa and beyond, but also it's helping the environment. And they're the kind of projects that we've decided we're going after, because we've come across a few of them. So our new, smart agri hub, as we were calling it, which we have planning for, we don't necessarily have the funding yet, but that new 30,000 square foot build, when it starts to happen, will probably focus on future technology projects where food security, environmental sustainability, animal health and well-being, and human nutrition all kind of cross over. And that'll very much be our focus and our smart specialization, I suppose, moving forward. Sharing knowledge and linking in with other ecosystems, like I said, is a really important part of what we're trying to do. And that triple or quadruple helix approach, where we're working with universities, we're bringing in students on work placements, they're working on programs directly with companies to solve problems for companies and that kind of thing. So we're starting to do a lot of that over the past 12 months. It's very resource intensive. So obviously we need to find ways of funding a lot of these projects, but we're very excited about some of the opportunities that are coming. We can go to the next slide, Siobhan, which I think is probably the last one. So in terms of skills development and, you know, our future vision and what it is we're trying to do, like I said, our focus is regional development, or trying to develop a regional development model that kind of works, or that can work outside of urban centres. So while we do the AI and the tech and the various other professional services, and we have all that within our hubs, and we support all of that and always will, we're building this food innovation district concept and project because we believe that, well, basically, if I can take companies, or if we can take opportunities from abroad or elsewhere and bring them to Ireland, or even work with projects that can remain elsewhere in other regions and work with them, and they can be regionally based and not necessarily in the urban centres, and we can bring them to life. And I suppose building a high-tech warehouse within a farm shed is a great example. And the amount of work and the spin-off to local farmers and the learning for local farmers and the interactions with that project have been amazing. Universities and state agencies getting involved as well, and even the private sector, larger corporates. And it's bringing everything to the farm, and it's kind of really educating the farmer, the students, the entrepreneurs, and everybody that's getting involved. And I suppose, and it's creating local jobs out in a region, in a space that potentially has massive potential for this particular region, but others like it as well. Those interregional partnerships, you'll see there, the bottom right, you know, we were in Nigeria as part of an Ireland-Nigeria trade mission there late last year, and amazing opportunities working. Potentially, we're evolving that with universities and looking at the various ECOWAS countries across Africa. So great opportunities for collaboration, especially in this type of technology and the space that we're trying to focus on in terms of future nutrition, future tech, future packaging, future protein, all that kind of stuff. And vertical farming and hydroponics can actually go anywhere. So there's a lot of interest in the Middle East and conversations happening with some of the projects we're involved in, which is great to see. Future expansion is an image there of our new 30,000 square foot build out the front, which again, what happens within those walls is kind of evolving, as I've mentioned. And our global outlook really is to try and be a global leader in building sustainable kind of food innovation, regional development model type ecosystems where, you know, we're looking at the land, we're looking at the environment, but with a food security and a food innovation hat on. You know, you're not going to see cattle as one of our tenants rightly said, Complex Nutrition, one of our large food companies who distribute whey protein products and nutrition products all around the globe. You're not going to see cattle, and you're not going to see animals walking up and down the streets of O'Connell Street or whatever in Dublin or anywhere else. But, you know, one thing we do have, we've lots of grass, we've lots of space, and we can bring in these projects on the vertical farming project, for example, not only producing the feed and building feed centres and lots of other stuff, which is on the cards, or this company is potentially looking at, but it's the manufacturing of the equipment itself, which is licensed in the USA, but the patent now has been taken to the Irish company to the patent and licensing for everywhere outside the USA, from Middle East, Africa, and across Europe. So some really exciting conversations happening there, and some major funds looking at some of those projects to see how they can be scaled above and beyond. We got lucky with that one, but we want to create more projects similar to that. So our co-working spaces, our incubation spaces, our labs, our programs, everything that we're doing, our relationships with colleges, our networking internationally, is all about building relationships and finding opportunities and a pipeline of opportunities for new startups or early stage companies that can be based here. But like I've said before, if we get the opportunity to work with companies from other regions and they stay where they are, whether it's in Ireland or outside of Ireland, we're more than happy and very excited to be doing that also, because the rising tide and everything else, we're looking to form a global innovation ecosystem focused around food and future of food technology and nutrition. So and that's really it for the Boyne Valley. And the last slide is just some of our projects. our different incubators and our hubs, and we run an enterprise week where we run conferences and events in line with Global Entrepreneurship Week, one of our international partners. Student Enterprise Challenge competitions with second level schools. We run programs with universities where we take, like I said, final year degree and master students on programs, and we design programs to link them in with companies and corporates. And on a couple of those programs, they're actually graded as part of the work that they do with us, project-based work they do with us. And that's a glimpse of what it is we do. In terms of EIC and Accelerator and various other stuff across Europe, we're certainly going in that direction ourselves and encouraging a lot of our members and client companies that we're trying to, or certainly to get them ready to go in that direction, because there's amazing opportunities in Europe. We've recently joined EIT Foods, the EIT Food Network. So hopefully we'll be in Rome next month to start the process of networking and engaging with other ecosystems and hubs that we haven't come across yet on our travels across Europe, and see how we can use some of the learnings we have and some of the projects we have maybe to collaborate and go for some funding in Europe. So that's really a bit of a snapshot of the Boyne Valley Food Innovation District and what we're trying to do.
That's great. Thanks so much, Gary. Again, Gary does need to leave the call in the next few minutes. So before he goes, does anybody have specific questions for Gary? Nope, no questions for Gary. So I think you're off the hook, Gary. You're free to go.
Great. Thanks very much, Siobhan. Okay, and enjoy the rest of the event, everybody. Okay.
Super. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So next we have Tim Roche. Tim has a really interesting story to tell, and I remember years back when I first got involved, I suppose, in community enterprise and engaged in projects with the local entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Cork in Ireland. A phrase I heard again and again was feeding the pipeline. And I think Tim's story is very interesting because I suppose an awful lot depends on your perspective of where the pipeline starts and finishes. So Tim's going to give his version as to how he has moved through that pipeline over the last 10, 12 years, Tim, at this stage, certainly since I met you first. So over to you, Tim. Do you want me to share your slides?
You'll take care of the slides. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Siobhan, for that introduction. I would say that journey started a little longer than 12 years ago, and I'll explain a little bit about it in a minute. When Siobhan gave me the proposed title of this talk, Challenges and Opportunities Through a Founder's Lens, the first question that occurred to me is, well, what calibrates a founder's lens? And I suppose in attempting to ask myself or answer that question for myself, what came to mind are three elements. One is experience, the second thing is curiosity, and the third thing is our relationships. And what I'm going to do here is take give you a personal insight into my journey, but I hope you'll find some universality in what I've learned along the way and what I say. You know, one can only speak to one's own truth, and we all have our own, but we all start somewhere and we all are aiming to go somewhere. And very often we experience things that divert us or support us along the way. And I'm just going to reflect on that a little bit for you here. If you look at the right-hand side of that slide, basically that's my journey to date. I grew up in an Irish field. Somehow I ended up working in Park Avenue in New York for a while. Went from the public sector to being an entrepreneur, and God knows where I'm going to end up after that. Just what's under the bonnet on that journey, I'll explain it very quickly. Basically, Gary gave me a very good segue into the second point there. My first day in school in 1972, which gives you an indication of my age. We learned a song called Oats and Beans and Barley. Do you or I or anyone know how oats and beans and barley grow? And the song went on to explain how the farmer sets the seeds and etc. But nowhere in the song was the answer to the question. And that didn't sit well with me. So I went on to become a plant scientist years later. And I remember sitting in my oral examination and being asked, well, why did you do plant science? And I told the story to the examiner. And I said, you know what? After all these years, I still don't know the answer. And I think that resonated with her as a scientist. Anyway, I proceeded to go on to take on a job in Australia, where I was very much involved in the whole area of plant tissue culture, and I had been working in microponics and all of that area for years. So again, quite a lot of overlap with what Gary's at the moment. We were building robots to do automated micropropagation, and we had a project in Indonesia, which I went on to manage. And at that, after making that transition, our joint venture partner went insolvent. So I learned a little bit about maintaining momentum in your business and trying to deliver what you promised that you would deliver. So I had to extract all the IP, the intellectual property out of that venture to support our own. And then we got into licensing of technologies outside the company and into the company. And that led to establishment of quite a successful and robust business. I then came back to Ireland in 2001 to run the National Food Biotechnology Research Centre, which allowed me to get involved with with a portfolio of about 30 biotech projects across the country in Ireland with a view to commercialization. And that gave me great contact and great insight into the excellent science that was emerging, and the importance of, going back to Sean's earlier comment about, funding each level of the TRL, having actors that are engaged to bring technologies forward from one TRL to the next, including at the very end, because the whole TRL paradigm is driven by a dynamic of pull and push. And if there ain't no pull, there's no point in having a push. Except when you're trying to achieve something that's disruptive, and again, there's value in that. So if you feel you're pushing and you're not seeing a pull, don't despair, because this is how breakthrough innovations occur. Okay, it's just that people haven't seen where the pull is coming from. But the pull doesn't often come from the incumbent industry. It very often will come from future players who have or visionaries that are in gestation at the present time. So have the strength of your conviction, but don't be blind, and make sure you're calibrated to what's going on around you. After that, I went to New York, where I was involved with Enterprise Ireland, a state enterprise development agency, where I was basically trying to attract investment from the US and North American food industry into Ireland on the basis of what we were doing in Ireland. Again, very often these projects were geared around de-risking investment based on the activity of Irish companies and Irish research institutions, what they were doing, and to make it quite a logical thing for American companies to come in and work with that, and maybe not take as much of the capital or operational risk as they would otherwise have had to do. So that was quite a learning curve for me, and gave me some really great networking opportunities and industry insights. I brought that back and worked with the multinational corporation community in Ireland, a lot with the infant formula sector, specialty ingredients, and the confectionery sector. And then I took a break or a career break, because I wanted to diversify. I was really on the lookout for a startup venture that I could jump into. I felt this is really where I wanted to get to. So I took on the role of Director of Technology Transfer in University College Cork. That's probably where I bumped into Siobhan first. And we during that period that I was there for 4 years, we set up about 18 companies, ranging from high-tech software companies right through to a clinical trials company, and a number of others. Then I decided, well, I didn't see an opportunity in any of those companies for me, so I said I'd better cast the net wider again. So go out as a consultant, working with companies and with research performing organizations to facilitate technology transfer, IP management, and again helping the pull meet the push, and reconciling what needs to happen to make that handshake work and translate into something. And during the course of that consultancy, which I've been at for the last 8 years, probably covered about 50 projects, ranging from space tech right through to agri-tech, right through to advising governments on foreign direct investment. I came across an opportunity to set up an enzyme discovery company called BioEnz Technologies, in conjunction with an excellent research team and another promoter. And we kicked that off just in time for COVID, but we managed to weather through, and I took on the role of CEO of that back in 2023, and I'm operating in that capacity now, trying to get funding and building up our product portfolio. We're just about to launch a new product, or at least a test run our new product, which we put into development only last March. Which is very exciting. It just shows how quickly you can turn science into a product. And we'll be bringing that to market. As I say, we're looking for investment also, and hopefully that will enable us to do a lot more. Next slide there, Siobhan, please. I suppose the challenges for the entrepreneur or for the startup promoter is the loneliness of the long distance runner. There's no question about it. You're constantly questioning your sanity. You're constantly questioning whether your belief is justified in yourself. But again, while you're doing all that, staying healthy, staying focused, staying happy, and sustaining personal relationships are huge challenges, and shouldn't be disregarded. Because they're not trivial, and it does take energy and investment, and it can be in some people's minds contradictory to what they should be about. But it's all about keeping the big rocks in and fitting everything in around them, as the saying goes. Also maintaining the bravery of changing course, or adopting the bravery of changing course. You will have to tack to different winds from time to time, and that change is difficult, and nobody likes change. But if change is necessary, then the first thing you have to do is recalibrate what you're doing and recalibrate your goals to make sure that change is justified and successfully embraced, if you like. The obvious next one then for me was staying the distance. It takes energy, but also it takes sustained curiosity, and it also really requires that you engage with others to bring them with you, to sustain you, and to sustain what the team that you've operated around. No person is an island, and you're not enabling yourself to your maximum potential unless you're aiming to collaborate with others and bring them with you. Next slide, please, Siobhan. Hello? Oh, sorry. Yeah, there we go. So the opportunities as I see them, well, key opportunity, I think, is nobody wants to be involved in a herd kind of scenario. So and I mean, we've all come across Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and maybe it's not important to everyone to differentiate themselves. But if that's what you want to do, that is the major opportunity in becoming an entrepreneur, to set yourself apart and do that in a positive way, and be seen to be doing it in a positive way, an insightful way, and a value-adding way. The opportunities are always to ask important questions with a view to changing the world around you, with a view to improving your own circumstances and that of others, and to deliver value. and in delivering value, you have to extract value. You have to interrogate those questions that you've asked. And again, I think I'd map back to and harken back to what Sean was saying. Again, this is all about creating a pull where there's a push and reaching across the TRL paradigm to connect with opportunities and with ideas, because very often technologies can come from different sources, but ideation around where they can really deliver value is critical, and to communicate that and engage in relationships that extract that and deliver that is absolutely critical. Again, always communicate with family, friends, the investment community, your network partners, whatever they may be. But it's all about, there's two things I learned. One is, it's absolutely essential to say what you do to get on in this world, and to be successful, you need to do what you say. You need to be seen to deliver. Those are two paradigms I would absolutely wish that anybody listening to me today would take away. And again, I'd endorse the whole, I can't emphasize enough, collaboration. I wouldn't have got where I am today, and I won't get to where I want to go today or tomorrow without collaboration, and that requires serious effort. So how do you shift the balance away from challenge to opportunity? Well, experiment, because wisdom is empirical. It can't be bought, it can't be subscribed to, it can't be taught, it has to be experienced. Believe in yourself. Find a mentor. That's one thing I never had, and I wish I had, because it helps you alleviate yourself from that self-doubt issue. Network proactively, both personally and professionally. In fact, there's no such thing as a difference between the two. All networking is personal. I suppose the other thing is collaborate courageously, invest time and skills and hobbies. They round you out as a human being. Don't sacrifice those, because they're part of your persona, and they will also be part of your storytelling. And the ability to tell stories and communicate in a way that's engaging for others is absolutely critical, and a fundamental plank in developing collaborations that are seen to be resonant with people's ideologies and ambitions. And the only other thing I'd say to everybody is, don't keep it to yourself. Pay it forward. The next generation needs your advice, your input, and what you're learning today. Thanks very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I have a quick question, if you don't mind. So thanks very much for a really good presentation, and really focusing on the human element, which I think sometimes you can forget in the stress of your startup and so on. But do you think there's enough of this education in universities? Do you think the young entrepreneurs come out of university with that risk mindset, and that that it's okay to take risk, it's okay to be an outsider in a sense because of the idea you're trying to develop and so on?
That's a very, very good question. And if I would have said historically, and that no is the answer. I think it's changing, but it's not changing fast enough. But I do think there was the whole, back in the early noughties, there was the whole Ferrari in the car park scenario, that when people started when academics started getting involved in startups, the idea of being seen to succeed and having material success was touted as an incentive. I don't think that has worked, because I think there are far too Ferraris in car parks. That effort. But the other thing is, I do think that initiatives that have been sponsored by the European Union, for example, and there's a lot more talking, at student level, at undergraduate level now, about hackathons and getting involved in student projects. And I think it is changing, but I know what industry is looking for, and this is established industry, is they're looking for thinking graduates, not taught graduates, right? Some institutions are better at that than others, and we all can do better, right? I would also say that risk-taking is a part of life, and there's a factoid there out there. The futurists of the world will say to you that I have a 17-year-old son. He will have about at least 17, maybe more jobs before he retires, and the job that he retires from has not yet been invented yet.
Yeah, so that's right.
to be mindful of, and we need a lot more risk embracing. And I call it opportunity is risk with a positive smile. You know.
Yes, indeed, yeah, very good. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Tim. Anybody else have a question? Okay, super. If it's okay, then we will move on to Irini. Irini, who's from Involve Entrepreneurship in Greece. Involve Entrepreneurship are our project lead, and Irini and her colleague Christina have been keeping us all in line for the last 10 months at this stage. So Irini, if it's okay with you, I'll hand over to you just to maybe give a brief outline of what the plan is for the project in the remaining weeks and months. We have Irini. Okay. Okay, well, maybe I'd step in then. And if any of the other partners want to contribute at this point, please do. So RInnoValleys is a 12-month lump sum Horizon Europe project. It's been a really interesting collaboration between the various different regions. As I said earlier, we have Malta, Hungary, Greece, Spain, Ireland, and Belgium. And there's been some really interesting learnings and fantastic exchange of knowledge and experience. And I think it's fair to say the panel of speakers here today has, you've all really done CEAI and Ireland proud. So thank you so much for your own contributions. We have at this stage had a number of transnational partner meetings. Our next one is planned for the end of this month in Bucharest. Sorry, not Bucharest, Budapest. And we will get together to review progress to date and very specifically to look at the proposed action plan that will come out of this project, and very particularly who are the key individuals and organisations across each of our regions that need to be part of a task force going forward in order to drive on the mission and ambition of this project. So it is a 12-month project, so I guess that's where we run into a challenge as to how do we progress once the project is complete, which will be the end of November. So our own ambition as a consortium of partners is to build a new project on the findings of this particular project and make an application when the time is right to develop a RInnoValleys phase 2. So there's certainly been a lot of information and knowledge shared here today that can contribute to that action plan, and we look forward to progressing it. Just before we wrap up, does anybody have questions? I didn't give you the opportunity at the beginning to ask questions of Sean, simply because we were under time constraints with both Liam and Gary, the speakers that followed. But at this point, is there anybody that would like to come back to Sean on specific questions?
I actually have one question to Sean.
Thank you,
And for the upcoming framework, what is your opinion about how best to maybe communicate EIC and the opportunities, or do you see a kind of a gap that is not covered by these programs where it could be really useful for beginners or regions to actually do this capacity building to match and kind of increase the pool maybe, because that's a big struggle to find good researchers and topics, and because majority of the universities, yes, there is some research going on, but it is not really impactful, let's say. So maybe just your opinion on this.
I think EIC is going to be big in Framework 10. In fact, this week, the competitiveness report written by Mr. Draghi pushing what EIC is doing, and they wanted more focus on the American approach that I mentioned, the DAPA program, where picking out winners and backing them and so on. But I think if I look at the EIC program, I've been following it since it was even dreamt of, they're basically trying to copy America. you know, and that kind of American culture of, we have an idea, I want to be world leader with it, you know. And I think that kind of excitement that the Americans bring to innovation, that's what's missing in a lot of the European companies, startups, and they say we'll hire 2 people and this will be a nice company and so on. And you don't need to do any lobbying for EIC because it was already done this week with the Draghi report. They were pushing what you're doing. But the question of getting researchers feeding in the ideas, that is a big weak point. You know, researchers, I meet thousands of them, and they're doing amazing stuff, but they're thinking about the next publication. They're not seeing the gold dust on their desk, and how to get those people. Now, to me, the researchers like the head chef in the kitchen, they're producing all these wonderful new meals and so on. Keep them in the kitchen. It's not about taking them out to the kitchen and then there's nobody left. It's that interface of meeting them and somebody else taking the idea forward. So if I was a young man again, I'd love to. I did it for a few years, actually, going around seeing labs and seeing business opportunities, but they didn't want to come out to the lab, but to give them a share of the spoils like the Americans do. And I remember the Cambridge experience, that the big success was that a scientist would come up with an idea, have a share of the company, get his Porsche or BMW or whatever, drive into the yard and go back into the lab. That they're still so it's not bringing the scientists out to the lab. And I think a lot of the literature seems to be sounding like that. But you heard in my talk there about the key is the people with the ideas, finding the ideas. And if you're a project and say, look, we want a way to be a magnet for the ideas to come out, that's still not approached in Europe. In America, it's thriving, you know. And the nearest I would say in Europe that I've seen is Aalto University in Helsinki. They have an amazing it's called the factory, or the design factory, where the scientists just sit around talking with computers. There's no paper allowed in there, you know, no bureaucracy or anything. And they're modeled on the MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology thing, you know. So that's what I would think. I think you're right. Yeah, there's the lobbying is being done for you for EIC, so there isn't any need. But coming up with ideas in your project, I'd say, Siobhan, one of the things that should come out of your project is a recommendation of what Framework 10 should do that's not in EIC at the moment. And I think you heard some of the presenters today referring to that, you know. But getting the researchers' ideas, getting that spark into a product and services, that's still the mystery. Now, I can smell these people. If I stand in front of an audience, I can pick out the person in the audience who has I did it recently, actually. This young guy, he was so excited about, he was put in an environment where you were describing what EIC does, and he was literally, that's what I'm looking for. That's exactly what I'm looking for. He was literally, he had the idea, he could see the huge potential for it, but he didn't know where to go next. And he was a quiet sort of a guy. So when you present what you do to researchers, there's always one in the audience, that's what I'm looking for. You know, they don't go looking, they don't know what to do. So I think the more exposure that EIC has to individual researchers, the better, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Thank you so
can
much.
I just add to that? Sorry, I saw the Draghi report. I haven't read it, but I've read the feedback on it. That's something to do for the weekend. But I think we're still hampered in Europe by these national boundaries and by heavy regulation. And of course, in our regulations and our directives aren't always implemented uniformly. So it puts a lot of uncertainty in the path of young, you know, entrepreneurs. And creates a lot of uncertainty. And going back to your point about the US, I think there's a lot more money over there. And I think they have a much higher risk mindset than what our European investors have. So again, that's, you know, we're dragging behind there. And, you know, that's, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know how to change that, but it's a fact.
But the thing about the regulations, it's 27 countries now. There's a lot of harmony and harmonized things. But in America, you invent something, and in Israel, you invent something for the military. It has to work, and then you commercialize it, and you don't think about anything else on America. That's so again, we think in Ireland about Ireland, and Malta thinks about Malta. Whereas we should, and this is, you know, the word region in the title. The region should be seen as a test bed for an idea, because in Europe they make policy decisions at European level, but they like to implement things at regional.
Exactly.
So if you say to a company, if it works in this region, whether it is electric vehicles, AI for sport or whatever, we're a test bed that could go to every region in Europe and then go internationally. So I think that's when I saw Reno, the regional word in your title, I said, that's the way to think, you know.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
But you see, you heard the speakers this morning, and Siobhan, we've had chats, long chats. We know so much about what works, doesn't work, and so on. But the young researchers coming out, and this is alien.
Yes, completely. It's
You know?
Yeah.
And that's what when I go out, especially when I go out live in the audience, I'm stunned by the lack of knowledge of people. It's as if they're gone into a dip. And you know where it comes from? It comes from the teaching of PhDs.
Yeah.
You're a PhD, you're supposed to have a knowledge, deep, very narrow knowledge, and forget everything else, only this. And then you come out and you're lost.
Exactly. They say they know the PhDs know a lot about very little, and that's actually true. You know, that's hyper focused on your research. Yeah.
So I think that's the kind of thing your research, your project should be about, is like feeding information into the preparation of framework 10, and the draft of framework 10 will come out in November 2025. So the timing of your project is good. And that would be a good thing, I think, Siobhan, to put in recommendations for framework 10 or the next framework program of what could be improved. But you see, the commission, they're getting loads and loads of documents coming in. So if you could pick out one or two really concrete kind of, wow, that's a good idea point, I think you get your extension then, you know. And Siobhan, you worked in the commission, you know how it works. There's tons of documents there, but something stands out. And you have an opportunity, say, when you're dealing with your project officer, to present this one or two strong points. I think you could make a name for yourself there, you know, with the project.
That's really great, Sean. That advice is invaluable. I almost think you and Marie could write the proposal for us. So we might talk about that again.
Yeah, we will.
If at this stage, because we have run over time, if at this stage nobody else has any questions, we might just wrap up for today. Any other questions? Of course, if there's anything you think about later on, it's very easy to email myself or one of the other partners. So for those of you that are left, I know people have had to drop off. I just really want to say a huge thank you to those who participated this morning, to Sean, Liam, Gary and Tim. Huge knowledge between all four of you. And I was delighted with the opportunity to be able to bring the four of you here today. And to everybody who contributed, everybody who's taken time out to attend, again, very much appreciated. There is a recording, it's still running. So once we've done some editing, this recording, along with the recording from last week's webinar, will be shared in due course. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a really great day.